Dear students, welcome back to this video. Now, as I said earlier, in this video, I'm going to use this example to explain all the different concepts of different types of training. So again, before we start, we are going to discuss chapter 8, and here I'm going to use the scenario of a high-speed racer in explaining the different concepts of training. Now, at the very beginning of this video, I need to show you a really boring definition. And I'm sure all of you know this definition by now, even before I go to the slide and show you the definition. So the definition is of training. So here is the formal definition of training. So training means giving new or current employees the skills that they need to perform their jobs. So for example, showing new salespeople how to sell your product. So this can be an example of a training. Now this definition is really boring and it's really easy to understand. I mean, what's there to explain, right? So without wasting further time, here I want to move to the main part of today's video, which is types of training. So I'm going to explain each of these types of training one by one and give you multiple relevant examples in order to explain these concepts. But before I start, I must tell you this. Most of the time, the moment I share the name of the training method, you will automatically be able to understand the concept of the training method. It's that easy. Again, as soon as you hear the name of the training method, you will be able to guess what happens in this training method, alright? So let's start the first training method, on the job training. Again, look at the name very carefully, on the job. Now, by reading this title, I guess some of you can guess what happens in this training method. Let me go to the definition here. So what happens in on-the-job training? So on-the-job training is training a person to learn a task while doing their job. So basically, you learn something while actually doing the job. So it is sort of like কাজ করতে করতে শেখা. Alright? So again, কাজ করতে করতে শেখা. So in this method, there is no separate training outside of the job. Rather, you are asked to join the job on the very first day and your boss or your hiring manager says that yes, you are going to learn to do the job while actually performing the job in real life. Do not worry at all if it's not clear to you yet. Let me give you an example here and the concept will be crystal clear to you. Let's take a look at these two pictures. Let's assume that the one on the left is Alif and the one on the right is Sadia. Now, both of them from their very early age want to be a professional racer. However, they do not know how to drive yet. So right now, they do not know any sort of driving. However, they want to be really successful professional racers. Now, how do I train them? Using on-the-job training method. Now, in this method, if they come to me, I'll tell them that yes, you are going to learn driving while you are racing with other racers in the competition. So this is basically learning to drive while racing in the competition. So the moment they come to me, I'll tell them go on the field or the racing track and start racing with the other racers. And that is what happens in on-the-job training, right? There is no separate training outside of the job. Rather, I'm asking them that yes, from the very first day, get into the car, put on your helmet, and start racing in the competition. The logic behind this method is that they will learn to drive while actually racing in the competition from the very first day. That is sort of on-the-job training. So the learning happens while doing the job. Now, if I want to give you the best practical example of on-the-job training, according to me, the example in Bangladesh would be this. Alright? So this is an example of on-the-job training. So what happens here? Many of the buses are being driven by unskilled or semi-skilled people who do not have any proper driving license or driving skills. So the main driver teaches them how to drive on the job. So many people without any driving skills or driving license are driving buses on the street while the bus is full of people. Alright? So that is on the job training. By the way, do not try this at home or on the bus because it is really risky for your life, right? Now, if I want to give you any further examples on this, here is another example of on the job training. So, for a machine operator, learning to operate the machine while doing their job. So, again, there is no separate training. Rather, from the very first day, they start doing clothes, and in this manner, they learn to do the job while actually doing the machine during the job. So, there is no separate training outside of the job. Let me give you another example here. Here it goes. For a teacher, learning to deliver lectures while actually taking classes. So as you can see here, there will be no separate training for the teachers. So the very first day a teacher joins, maybe in a primary school or secondary school or in a university, a teacher starts taking classes of the students. And by doing so from the very first day, the teacher or the person is basically learning how to take classes effectively and in an efficient manner. So in all of these methods that I have explained till now, the learning happens on the job or during the job. So all of them are learning while doing the job, and that is why it is called on the job training. Now, there is a problem with on the job training. This is very important. So what is the problem of on the job training? So let me go back to the learning to drive while racing example. Here, you have no experience in driving, right? Now, if I ask you that go on the racetrack on the very first day and start racing, then what will happen? Yes, this is bound to happen, alright? You will face horrifying accidents or car crashes, and maybe people will die. So I cannot ask someone who does not have any driving experience to learn on the job by going on the racetrack and racing with other racers on the very first day. That is not practical, right? So as you can see, on the job training cannot be applied to all the cases or all the jobs. Let me give you another example here. Do you think that on the job training is a good idea for swimmers? Never. Why? Because I cannot ask someone who does not know swimming at all to attempt a swimming competition on the very first day. If I do so, what will happen? Definitely that person is destined to die. That is not a practical solution as well. Now, maybe in the case of the job for a teacher, on the job training is a solution. Then maybe for a basic sewing machine operator, on the job training is also a possible solution. But this is definitely not a solution for a racer or a swimmer. So what is the solution here? Let's take a look at the ways to save life and money in the case of a racing competition. Now, instead of asking a person who does not know driving at all to attend the race on the very first day, what I can do is first give that person a low cost, low budget car. By the way, do you recognize this car? Yes, it is Mr. Bean's car, right? So yes, the first thing I can do is give that person a low cost, low budget car like this. And number two, give that person a practice racing track. So it is not a professional racetrack, but maybe it is a parking lot or a small place to practice driving. So if I give that person this low cost car and a small place to learn driving, what will happen? That person will slowly start to learn driving. In that manner, I can obviously save my fancy car from facing an accident, right? I mean, the accident with a fancy car will cost me a lot of money. So by giving this car to that person, I'm saving a lot of money, and at the same time, by giving him this small racetrack or a practice track, I'm saving his life at the same time as well. Because on the professional racetrack on the very first day, that person is not going to survive. So in summary, by using these two things, I'm basically saving a person's life and money for the organization. And this process leads us to the next type of training method. So what happens here? Again, instead of asking the person to learn driving from the very first day on the job or during the job, I'm asking that person to learn driving off the job or outside of the job. And this method of training is called vestibule training. Again, vestibule training. I'm going to explain this concept even further. But just to give you a brief idea, In the vestibule training method, the training takes place off the job or outside of the job. Now let's take a look at the details of the vestibule training method. What happens here? So here goes the formal definition. So with the vestibule training, trainees learn on the actual or simulated equipment but are trained off the job. So perhaps in a separate room or vestibule. Now I'm going to explain the actual meaning of vestibule very soon. Do not worry about it at the moment. For the time being, please focus on this. So in vestibule training, the training takes place off the job or outside of the job. So again, in this training method, rather than asking the person to learn on the job the very first day, I'm asking them to start learning off the job or outside of the job. Now in the racer example, in this training, I can give that person the actual car or a low cost, low budget car. However, no matter which car I give to that person, the main point is it has to happen off the job or outside of the job. So not in a competition on the very first day. So vestibule training is necessary when it is too costly or dangerous to train employees on the job. This is a very important point. And finally, it can be helpful when operating with a dangerous machine or an equipment. So this sort of training is vestibule training. Now, let me explain the term vestibule. Why are we using the term vestibule here? What does it mean? Now, if you take a look at the dictionary, the meaning of vestibule is this. So, vestibule means it is sort of a lobby outside of your apartment. You can see it here, right? This is a lobby. So again, vestibule is some sort of a lobby outside of your apartment or the small place you can see when you get out of your apartment or your house. So the lobby in front of your staircase. That is called vestibule in some countries. Now that you know the meaning of vestibule, can you guess why is it called a vestibule training method? The reason this is called a vestibule training is sort of like this. Instead of asking someone to do the job on the very first day on the field or in the actual workplace, you are basically giving that person a small place or a small lobby type place to practice the job first. So that is why it is called a vestibule training. So once the training is done, then the employee or the person can start doing the actual job. Now, you can think of it like this. Say you wanted to be a cricketer. Now, instead of asking you to learn to play cricket on the field in an actual competition from the very first day, I can ask you to practice in the vestibule or in the lobby of your living place. I'm sure many of you have played cricket in your lobby when you were much younger, right? So that is sort of a vestibule training. So again, in this picture, we have Mr. Bean's car and a small practice track. And combining these two, we can practice vestibule training. So in a similar manner, we can also ask a swimmer to practice vestibule training. How? In this way. Take a look at this photo. So here, the swimmer is not in an actual swimming race, right? Or a swimming competition. So here, I have given him a small pool or a jacuzzi type thing, right? So this is not an actual swimming pool, rather a small place full of water. So the person is going to practice swimming here first, and then once his training is done, he can go to the actual swimming competition. Alright, now let's move on to the last example of vestibule training. So here it goes. Putting new assembly line workers right to work could slow down production. So if I hire a new assembly line worker who does not have any experience in operating with a machine, we cannot place that person on the job from the very first day. In that case, the production line will slow down. So what we can do here, we can implement vestibule training. So rather than making that person stand in the actual production line from the very first day, we are going to train that person outside of the job or off the job with a similar kind of machine or the actual machine. In that manner, the production line will not be hampered and the person can learn the job very well. Moreover, without proper training, operating a heavy machine can lead to accidents. So yes, when safety is a concern, simulated training of the job may be the only practical alternative. So yes, vestibule training can be a possible solution here as well. So yes, we are done with on-the-job training and vestibule training. Now let us move on to the next example, which is coaching or understudy method. This is a very simple concept. It's very easy to understand. Now, as the name suggests, what happens here, we work under a coach here. So we are going to study under some coach or a supervisor. That is a coaching or understudy method. Let us take a look at the formal definition here. So in coaching, an experienced worker or the trainee's supervisor trains the employee. So as I said earlier, the training takes place under a coach or a supervisor. Now this method may involve, number one, simply observing the supervisor, or having the supervisor or job expert show the new employee the job process step by step. So there may be two options. Number one, your supervisor is doing the job and you are just observing that person. Or in the second option, the supervisor is again doing the job. However, at the same time, you are practicing with that person as well. So you are participating in the job as well. Let me explain with the example here. So for the driving case, what may happen in a coaching method? So here it goes. So in a coaching method, as you can see here, we have a coach actually driving, and beside him, there is a new learner observing the coach to drive. Now from the picture, as you can see, maybe the coach is really rude and rough, and maybe this is not a very good coach. So that's why the new learner is really frightened. So yes, summary is there will be a coach and the new learner or the trainee is going to learn from that person. Now let's move on to the other example. So a senior doctor showing how to perform a surgery step by step. Now that person is showing this person how to perform the surgery step by step. So this is another coaching or understudy method. Now another example can be a machine operator showing how to operate a machine to a new hire. So let's assume these group of people were new hires for the company. So they do not know yet how to operate a machine. Now this person sitting in the middle is a senior employee in the organization, and this person is demonstrating or showing to them how to operate a machine. So this person is basically working as a coach for all of these people. Now let's move on to the final example. So yes, a football coach showing how to play football. So I guess this example is very common and all of you know this example. So as you can see here, Zidane is coaching all the players of Real Madrid. So this person is a coach for the whole team. So yes, we are done with coaching or understudy method. Now the final training method for today is job rotation. And I'm sure all of you know this concept by now. Why? Because we have covered this topic in the job analysis chapter, and also we gave questions from this concept in the midterm as well. So I'm not going to explain it very thoroughly. I'm briefly taking you through this concept one more time. So what do we mean by job rotation? Here goes the formal definition. In job rotation, an employee moves from department to department to get trained on different departments' activities. So again, you are being rotated as a trainee from department to department. Let me give you an example here. Let's assume we have this smart guy over here. So let's assume this is Arif. So he has been hired as a management trainee in an organization. And now, as part of his job rotation, he is being placed in the marketing department first. So for the next 2 months, he is going to work in the marketing department and learn all the activities there. Now after 2 months, he is again being rotated to the IT department for the next 2 months. Now after 2 months, again, he is going to be rotated to the finance department. And finally, after the next 2 months, he is again going to be shifted to the HR department. Why? So that he can learn and be trained on all the different activities of all these departments. That is job rotation. So yes, we have successfully covered 4 different training methods in today's class. So successfully we have been able to finish our training as racers, and this is our reward. So congratulations, you are all champions of the race. So thank you once again for listening to this lecture. I will see you all the champions in the next video very soon.